Go ahead and get started here with the meeting. Thanks everyone for joining us in the room and online virtual participants. This is the October 4th meeting. Kind of rounding out the curve here on 2024. We have one more meeting in November 22nd. But appreciate the time you're invested in the SEDA COG MPO process and regional transportation planning. We have a couple of new folks. So as we kind of call to order, we'll just do introductions. So it looks like we have a guest or two online that is new. And I wanted to make the announcement here up front that we're very pleased to have Dave Witchey. David Witchey from Columbia County. He's coming on board. The commissioners at Columbia County appointed him via resolution recently as the Columbia County voting member. Eric Staley had moved to the township level to be the manager, and so he departed, and that vacancy, the commissioners appointed Dave, the chief clerk at Columbia County, to be the new voting member. So we've known Dave over many years, serving in that role at the county and sharing information with Columbia over the years. So glad to have you invested in the MPO process now. And so welcome, Dave. Anything else you want to share at this time?
I won't say too much early on because I don't know too much, so I'll figure it out as I go along.
Great. Yeah, and we understand there's a lot, certainly lexicon and acronyms. We'll try to eliminate that as much as possible. And like when we get new members, we'll work to have an orientation session with you and kind of prime, on some of the core things over the next 10 to 12 months we're working on, and background material that you can reference as you have time. So
Thank you.
appreciate you coming on board. And then online, if anyone wants to unmute and introduce yourself, actually, but one more, we'll have Lincoln, the new member of your planning staff in Slater County. If you'd like to introduce her, please.
Yeah, this is my new administrative assistant, Kelly Boyer. She started about 2 weeks ago, week and a half or so ago. So glad to have her on board. Wanted her to come here, get to meet some people and see what we do, and go through the agenda and understand what we do. So Kelly Boyer.
Great, thanks. Welcome, Kelly. And on the slide here, we're just kind of tracking our participation of the voting members. So those of you in the room and online hopefully can follow along. We have well beyond a quorum voting members. We have 17 voting members, each of the county appointments. PennDOT districts, our two largest municipalities in the Bloomsburg-Berwick urban area, down in Bloomsburg and Berwick Borough. And then also our SEDA COG board appointed positions on the MPO. Bob Stout came on this year as our multimodal, all kind of active transportation, bicycle, pedestrian items that you represent. Randy Karshner is our new SEDA COG board appointed position representing a county commissioner from Columbia and Montour and Northumberland counties. And Michelle Holman cannot be with us from the transit side of things with Rabbit Transit, but we do have that item that represents Rabbit Transit here today in the transit community. And then myself as SEDA COG transportation representative, and who the board appoints as the chair, with Nate Walker, our PennDOT central office liaison, and representative as the vice chair at SEDA COG MPO. So I think pretty much all the county planners except for Justin, and I think I heard he was on travel and not around. So hopefully he's enjoying himself with some downtime and some leisure here today. But otherwise, we have pretty much a full complement. So thanks everyone for joining us. And as I was indicating online, is there anyone that would like to introduce yourselves? I think there was maybe a John Kennedy I had seen. If you or anyone else, this is your first SEDA COG MPO member, please unmute and introduce yourself. May not be able to hit the unmute button at this time, but
Good morning. This is Jeff Eisman from Pennsylvania Silicon Transportation Alliance. Not my first meeting. Yeah, so on a personal note, it was nice to get to the Bloomsburg Fair last Friday. Definitely a good event. Great event.
great. Actually, I hope you found a way to eat your way around the park or the fairgrounds. And I know some of you are aware that Rabbit Transit started serving with their stop hopper micro transit the Bloomsburg Fair this year and making several trips, and I think it was very well received. So thanks to the commissioners for investing in that process and promoting that. So if there were no other introductions, next on the agenda is our public forum. This is the opportunity for anybody that's joining online or in the room. If there's something not on the agenda here today that you'd like to bring forth, please feel free. We'll pause for a second or two and see if anybody has anything for the public forum.
Yeah, it's the Jeff again from the Transportation Alliance. So yeah, just a brief update on the PA Legislative Transportation, the committee hearings. The House concluded theirs back on September 18th, and they've been going around the state. We, along with Rabbit testified at the August 29th hearing, did a great job. And then the Senate, PA Senate had two, Transportation Alliance, and we had a user of one of Rabbit's programs actually testified with us on their use of the shared ride and also Amtrak services back on 10/1. There was also a Senate hearing on the 17th. So we'll see right now what happens. Just as a reminder, the governor and legislature agreed to 80.5 million early in July. The push now is to get the additional 202 million, we'll say, if the governor didn't get included. So that's the push. There's also a push to try and get a sustainable funding mechanism. One that the bills that are being talked about for that. There's the sustainable one is more the revenues from what's the word? Skill games. That's the big one. Senate Bill 1142. And for what the governor proposed, they're looking at using 1.75% of the sales tax revenues for that. It's a little lower than what SEPTA wanted, but we'll see. I think they're gonna wind up with a lower number in general, but we'll see. If folks still have comments, I think they can submit them to the House Transportation Committee or the Senate Transportation Committee. And Kerry Benninghoff is the minority party Republican chair, and he has parts of Senator Mifflin. He was at every hearing. I went to one and I watched the others online, but he was at every hearing across the state. So yeah, that's the update on the funding. But yeah, it's still keep going, still keep contacting your legislators.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. If any of you want kind of the notes that they provide for those committee hearings, let us know. We could share this with you, but as Jeff referenced, they were presenting. Rich Carr from Rabbit Transit had presented as well as part of the most recent Senate hearing. So we'll see if anything comes out of that process. If you recall, the state bill that was passed, it'll continue to ratchet back the state police allocations from the motor license fund that funds primarily transportation projects. So eventually that'll free up more resources for transportation projects. And then we'll see on the public transit side of things what's addressed. And if you recall, there was that new 80 or so million for county and local bridge projects and other transportation projects in the state bill for a single fiscal year. That's still being developed, the program, how that would be advertised, application would be solicited. As we learn more, we'll be sure to get that out to members as soon as possible. But there's additional resources for local governments as well, that new state funding bill package for the fiscal year 24 to 25. Anything else for the public forum?
Hey, Steve, this is Dan Merck with STEP. I know I registered late, a little late maybe, but I just wanted to let you know I'm here.
Great. Thank you for joining us, Dave, or Dan. And Dan's with STEP, the transit operator for Clinton and Lycoming County. So thanks for being with us. Next in the follow along on the agenda in your packet, those of you that have a hard copy here or online, the electronic version. This is the approval of the August 9th SEDA COG MPO meeting, runs from pages 3 to 6 of your packet. So if everyone's had a chance to review that, we would look for a motion to approve. So moved. John, thank you for the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Brad. Thank you. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Sorry for the delay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All abstain. Okay, thanks, Dave. So it makes sense of you not being present for that meeting. Thank you. Okay, properly motion seconded and approved. The minutes from August 9th are approved. We'll get those on our website. As you know, we put our meeting materials, the agendas, the packet, supplemental materials on our website for download. And this meeting is being recorded, as is our custom ever since COVID. And the audio will be uploaded to our SEDA COG YouTube channel afterward as well. So we had an opportunity for anybody that cannot participate, whether they're a member or they're part of the public, to access the materials and also follow along with the meeting through our YouTube upload. Okay, we're moving along to item D. This is our normal administrative modifications or amendments if they come up for the TIP, Transportation Improvement Program. And we include in the packet pages 8 to 20 showing all the adjustments within District 2, so our Clinton, Mifflin, Juniata portion of the region. And then the other 5 counties in District 3 follow, for Columbia, Montour, Northumberland, Snyder, and Union. These are all administrative modifications, so they're minor. They don't rise to the level of an amendment due to cost or being a new project added to the TIP or so forth.
Yep.
And so no vote is actually needed. For this, they're just informational and discussion. Please pose questions to the PennDOT team as they review the modifications at all, or to us as staff. So those are in the packet, running from pages 8 to 20. And traditionally, we'll go to District 2 first, and Mark Schultz to highlight a few items here to run down. And our TIP modification dashboard, we've been highlighting that for several months from what Bryce prepares. You can click on each of the points and bring up the essential details on the projects and the adjustments there, and follow those along through that interactive web map. So Mark, would you mind unmuting and running down the ones you want to highlight in District 2, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Steve. And good morning, everyone. As we look at these administrative actions, we're looking at a lot of actions that were for the closeout of the 2023 TIP. There are a lot of different fund movements, a lot of transfers, trying to utilize available funds for projects, any project that we could fit them into. And I'll talk about a couple projects that may have had some situations in which we were forced to transfer funds. First on the list on, I guess, page 8, we'll look at a railroad device, warning device installation, warning device upgrade. It's a corridor project with the SEDA COG JRA and the Juniata Valley Railroad. We're looking at 3 different locations, Kish, Walnut, and Delaware. Those projects are underway, and there was an adjustment for the costs on that portion. That is not a regional SEDA COG line item. That is a discretionary fund that comes out of the statewide reserve line item. So it's additional funds to support safety needs involving railroad crossings. Then we see a number of updated estimates for different phases. As we scroll down through on page 9, we see an adjustment that was for deobligation of funds. That is funds for completed project or completed phases, funds that were not necessary or not needed in the project. And we were able to capture those and bring those funds back to the TIP and get those incorporated in this administrative action. It would be back to the line item, and then those funds are distributed out to other projects as well. In the middle of that page, we see a reduced reduced fund for a low bid cost savings on the US 22 concrete restoration project. So we were able to utilize funds there, move those around to a couple other projects, one being a box culvert project that needed some funds for the design phase there as well. And at the bottom of that page, we see a swap of highway and bridge funds to help support the projects. There are times where we may not have the funds that we need to fully support a project. And in those situations, we may split fund or attempt to split fund a project. In this case, we were able to free up some funds, make those funds available to fully fund with highway and or with bridge funds as needed. Move down to page 10. And in page 10, we had an adjustment for funding to adjust for proper federal fiscal years. As you may be aware, the Transportation Improvement Program is a 4-year federal 4-year time frame. We adjusted funds within those federal fiscal years to better support our projects, advance those funds, keep them within the active years of their designation for phase, In a case like this, we have a construction phase in which we adjusted to pull funds forward to meet the construction phase needs on the project there for 522 over Jacks Creek. So moving down then, more updated increases for updated estimates. As we come down through, we see on page 12, there was a swap of funds between NHP and STP. NHPP funds are National Highway Performance funds. Those funds have some restrictions on available use or where they can be utilized, where the STP for federal funds have more opportunity to be spread throughout the region. And at the bottom of that page, we were looking at adding a project. This is the 880 pipe, SR 880 in Clinton County. This pipe's been monitored by our maintenance forces in Clinton County for some time. They had intentions of getting in and replacing this pipe about 2 years ago, but it was determined that because of environmental needs and the attached structure to that pipe, that we would not be able to utilize department forces for that work. Therefore, we are moving forward with some preliminary engineering design so that we can get all the permits needed to replace this pipe. I believe if it's not a 60-inch, it's a 72-inch swash pipe through that area, and we're going to be incorporating that into a department resurfacing project along 880 in Clinton County. This work will then become contracted work through construction. And the next two I have highlighted in green on page 13. We were able to utilize in late August of this year. We had significant rainfall in the Juniata County area. Somewhere records of 6 or 7 inches of rain had come down, had gathered in some valleys, and had caused some damage in a couple locations throughout Juniata County. Typical scenario in this case would be that our maintenance forces would go out. We had a situation in which we had contractors with contracted work very near these locations. One of the locations, they were still on site to complete for a box culvert project. We were able to utilize TIP funds and utilize contractor equipment and contractor workforce to repair those areas, repair those bridges, repair the roadway, install a new pipe, and reopen those bridge structures and roadway infrastructure very quickly. I believe within a week. So it was a good effort. It came together. It's not something that occurs often enough that we were prepared for, but I believe that things went well. We were able to then utilize TIP funds, 100% state TIP funds, to help invest into those projects, those previously awarded projects, and get that work done. And on the bottom of that, we have a swap of federal fiscal year funds. We did not receive the environmental clearance for a project. This is a situation in which we did not meet a milestone. By not meeting that milestone, we could not capture the federal funds that were available in the final design phase for the Little Laurel Run. So the funds for Little Laurel Run were transferred over to the Honey Creek Bridge project, and we were able to move funds. Now, as we move into the 25 TIP, we'll be looking to adjust the funds that were previously captured for Honey Creek back to Laurel Run and balance those out in a future admin action. And that's all I have at this time. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to talk about them.
Great, thank you, Mark. As we move to this kind of new PowerPoint to guide through the discussion, we just put a table here on this slide to kind of show those action IDs from your action report that Mark was just running down, the project number or the MPMS number, a link where you can go out to PennDOT's One Map resource to pull out the basic project details and the location of it, and then a Google Street View link, which tried to pull some of those that were like dollar cost adjustments or swaps that were occurring sometimes there in the rundown financial accounting. And so hopefully that's helpful in the future. If come and pay us questions, we can kind of refer these links and bring up the sites. That was one of the recommendations of our strategic plan. Yeah, we know we have people coming across the 8-county region, we may not be familiar with a lot of these areas or the project locations, and just kind of have this geared up and ready to go in case there were questions, and be able to refer to them on the fly during the meeting. So this going forward with this kind of template and this model. So thanks, Mark, for the items there. I know there's a lot of accounting and tracking there, and how you're advancing everything and managing all the different elements is really impressive. So any questions for Mark on any of the projects in District 2?
Steve, I don't have a question. Mark, on behalf of Juniata County, I really want to thank you for what PennDOT did, especially there with the roadway construction at the southern end of Port Royal. The flooding actually, excuse me, occurred 2 days before the Juniata County Fair was to open. And that would be one of the major routes, Route 75, into the fair. And I just know everybody was very appreciative. Roadway was repaved and reopened the night before the fair opened up. So thank you.
Yes, you're more than welcome, Bram.
Cool. Thanks, Brett. If there's nothing further for Mark, as I said, these are all the minor administrative modifications, so no formal vote is needed. We'll just segue into the District 3 adjustments. Again, those run the remainder of this section of the packet, pages 15 to 20. And Chris King, if you'd like to unmute and run down any of the highlights here for the members, please.
Sure, Steve. Thanks a lot. Morning, everybody. As everybody has said before me, Mark and Steve, these are minor adjustments, quote unquote. They don't involve new money. This is just kind of moving money around that's already been approved on the tip. There's a number of our management actions that are, I would say, very small increases or decreases to pre-construction phases. I thought I would just highlight there's maybe 4 more significant construction cost increases. The first one in your list is SR 4020 in Columbia County. It's a bridge rehabilitation in Orange Township over Green Creek. That's SR 4020, increase of close to 300,000. The next one that I would call out would be an increase overall on the Danville safety project, the SR 54 corridor safety improvement. An overall construction cost increase of just shy of $1 million on that project. Scrolling on down, I'd say the next project worthy of calling out would be actually a couple of projects on Route 5 in Snyder County. First one is a tributary to Middle Creek in Spring Township, and that's a construction cost decrease of about $250,000. And then a second bridge replacement on Route 522 over Beaver Creek, and that's a construction cost increase of $200,000. I believe that's also in Spring Township. So those were the worthy projects I felt like calling out. Most of the other projects are, like I said, smaller pre-construction adjustments, but like I've noted before, the map that SEDA COG puts together, these actions, really does a better job than I can do talking about them, honestly. But if you have any questions on any of them that I spoke about or that I didn't, you can, feel free to ask me now or send me an email or whatever works for you.
Great, thank you, Chris. I know the one at the very end of your report, the management action report on page 20, the multimodal fund in Columbia County. I know that was one that's come up in our prior coordination meetings with the county for the local bridge prioritization process, but that was approved with the multimodal statewide discretionary funding. And it'll be reflected now on the tip for that 693,600. The T409 over 10-mile run project, multimodal transportation funded project. So that's reflected on the web map that Bryce prepared as well. And we have that in the table here as the bottom project on this table. So you can click out to that 10.1 map link or the street view if you want to see that project as well. Any questions or discussion for the District 3 adjustments? Okay, hearing none. We did have here listed on the slide and within the packet starting page 21, Logan Township Bridge T349 over Fishing Creek in Logan Township, Clinton County. There's been inspection information, PennDOT reviews and evaluations. We coordinated with Steve Gibson last, thanks for raising the bar on this one, and the township having conversations and calls with us as well. The priority being elevated. And in this case, the township, committing to that 5% match throughout all phases. So we want to put this in here for informational purposes. You can see the write-up in the description, the 38-foot bridge. And you can see photos of the deterioration of the beams in there. So it's important for the detour purposes, school bus routing, and the township committing the local funds. We would look to hopefully have this for the November meeting as an amendment to add it using the bridge off federal aid system funding. So, but we wanted to bring it here for the forum today for your information. And as the fiscal charts and other background information will be generated, this would be intended to be an amendment for November to be approved as adding it to the TIP to set up those necessary steps thereafter with reimbursement agreements and getting this underway for design and preliminary engineering. So anything at this stage, either Mark or Steve, you'd like to share about this particular bridge and the emphasis or need for it?
Sure. First off, I just want to thank Steve and Mark Schultz for meeting with the township supervisors. This bridge has been in the county bridge inspection program for, as long as they've been doing it. They've known there's been problems there for several years. They just didn't know what to do. We were able to put them in front of Steve Herman and Mark Schultz and Municipal Services, and they sort of mapped out a road for them. Logan Township is an Amish ag community bisected by Fishing Creek, which is the creek that crosses. There's 3 bridges that cross it. One's already shut down. This one has a weight limit on it, so it limits plow trucks, fire equipment, school buses. So right now they really have one full functional bridge to access about 20 or 30 farms on the side of the region. We got them in front of the right people, and this is the right ones. Thanks for considering it.
Yeah, thank you. And we appreciate their sincere interest in addressing this quickly. And Randy Albert is a great resource. I know he's been out on site and met with them and discussed some of the different alternatives and what we're seeing right now just in cost estimates for these types of bridges. So overall, as you see there, it's about $2.25 million total project, and their investment will be a little over $100,000, most likely with the 5%, which they pledged and committed to. So that could, a difficulty or a very distinct challenge. We're glad to see this be addressed and avoid some of those issues if it were to potentially be closed or further restricted. Mark, anything additional from you on this project before we leave the modification?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that it did come together, but a lot of this was anticipated not for this bridge structure, but by the MPO, SEDA COG MPO, by working to set aside reserve line item funds specifically for local bridge interests. That's why we anticipate that very early in the next meeting, we'll be able to utilize funds that are on the TIP in the reserve line item specifically for local bridge needs, and initiate the design process for this structure. So it is a whole group effort. The township, the county, coming together with the necessary information, making the commitment, the MPO having the funds in the line item specifically for local bridge needs. And as you mentioned, Randy Albert and the communications that followed. So it's a good effort, and I look forward to this being a continued effort throughout the MPO region.
Great, thanks, Mark. Appreciate, having that flexibility and that capacity and having these reserve line items to, address the emerging needs. As we get into the next tip update, which won't be that far off, we'll start that process next year with the outreach meetings with each of the counties and, be new gathering of data for our long range plan update and also the statewide, 12-year program cycle of public commenting. You'll be taking a fresh look. There's always fluid situations with local bridges dealing with emergency events or major flooding, land development and otherwise. But this did, rate highly in the county's eyes, certainly township, and in that evaluation process that we usually do. And then to get this, firm commitment of the local match to advance this it's very huge and important. So more information to come in November, and we'll look to have the fiscal charts and the other materials prepared for this project to approve adding as an amendment to the tip.
You guys have a question. This bridge looks pretty bad shape. Why wasn't it included originally in the tip that we just adopted?
It was on the listing, as we kind of go through that scoring process. There were a few others that were being looked at in Mifflin County, and those are advancing. They have $5 fee money, and some of the retroactive bridge reimbursement processes. But we had the line item there as need for better defined, and that's kind of what happened at this time. So it's on now a 6-month inspection schedule, as they found out in the field that it was deteriorating factor cycle. So it wasn't known, but just as the tip is developed, it's hard to press those in exactly to fully identify them. And if we don't have the local match commitments up front, we can't really add it. In this case, now we have the formal match commitment. And that's the typical, the 80-15-5 that it would follow, the match percentages, the federal, state, and local. So we would like to build that flexibility and having the reserve line items and things are better defined, some unknowns up front. So that's what's occurring now. Also within this section, it's just our normal reporting on page 25 of projects that were previously approved for adding to the tip, and the top one has been addressed, and the signal was installed in the turning lanes there at Route 42 and 4003 Frosty Valley Road. So we'll be able to take that one off for the next MPO meeting, and the latter two there are the Appalachian Regional Commission and local access road projects. Sealands Grove Borough advancing has an estimated let date of early next year. And then the Milton Borough Marsh Road project is on pause due to the constraints they found out there and the funding issues and the shortfall. But we'll continue to hold those until those are being added to the tip and out to bid. So if there are no further questions, we'll proceed into agenda item F here, E. This is the normal project updates on the CSVT, the Central Susquehanna Valley Transportation Project, all the active goings on with this other section work. The northern section that's just driven or been out there, obviously the bridge is open and the interchanges and working pretty well, but there's a lot of activity occurring with the contracts on the southern section. And so Chris King is going to give us an update on those. And we have some of the condensed bullet points here in the PowerPoint as well for you to be able to follow along. And then Chris will also give us an update on the major Route 54 safety project in Montour County. So Chris, turn it over to you, please.
Thanks again, Steve. So for the CSVT project, I will talk about it in 3 sections because we have 3 contracts for the southern section. We have the earthwork contract, structures contract, and the paving contract. In terms of the earthwork, we're at about 90% complete. All of the excavation and embankment constructions finished. As you may or may not know, Park Road and Colonial Drive have been completed. They were done last fall. Fisher Road is open to the new Park Road alignment. The two roundabouts down in the Airport Road area, App Road and Mill Road area, those are fully open. So all that's left on the earthwork is some final grading, and then installing drainage and paving the side roads where we had truck crossings. Moving on to the structures contract, this is roughly 25% complete. The grain road structures, the beams are set, and they're working on the decks. Cortland Drive over the 61 connector, same condition, beam set, and they're forming the deck now. Likewise, same situation on the 61 connector over the ramps that connect to routes 11 and 15. CSVT over 11th Avenue, we have finished the piers and the abutments, and we'll get the beam set yet this year. Stetler Avenue, Pier 1 and Pier 2 are constructions underway, and they do plan on working through the winter, weather permitting, on these on the structure. The noise barrier work has begun, just with foundation drillings. That's mostly north of Granger's Road. So kind of in summary, again, 25%. There's 9 bridges and 4 noise walls overall in the contract. And we anticipate those structures being complete by the end of next year. Well, that contract. And then the paving contract, we are still wrapping up final design and the plans for that work. Right-of-way acquisition, mostly minor strip takes in the interchange areas that's ongoing. Still working with the utility companies on their facilities in the interchange areas. Still working on permit applications for some impacts to streams and wetlands. Still anticipating letting it late next year or early 2026. And as I said before, the main line southern section is still anticipated to be open to traffic in 2027. Even though once again, like I've said, once we open mainline traffic, we still have another year of work to complete with the 61 connector. So that won't really be open to traffic until 2028. I would, just remind everybody there is a website, csvt.com, that contains a lot more than what I talked about. You can see plans and more detailed information there. With regard to Danville, I'll keep it pretty. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
I just got to pause me there if it's okay.
Or does somebody have a
Link or
question?
anyone else has any about the southern section contracts that were?
The only thing I really have is what needs to be designed yet? What are you working on as far as design?
Well, we have a whole basically plan set for the paving. The permit for some of this work that we need to do to extend culverts, etc., mostly in the interchange areas, that's still that's still part of a design, I guess you could say. When we do the earthwork contract, that doesn't have any pavement design in it. That's strictly rough earthwork, I guess you could say. The right-of-way plan is not final at that point. It's just it's a much more refined impact area with the paving contract.
Chris, Mark Schultz, can I ask, was that portion let or bid to a contractor as a design build scenario?
No.
Okay.
So
And those right of way negotiations can be protracted, as you know,
yeah,
throughout the
Yeah.
process.
Involved in that, but right, how that works. So is that where the roughly 10% of the overall earthwork is too? Is that mostly in that design portion? Or
is
no?
the 10%, I guess, could you ask me that a different way or repeat your question?
But your earthwork contract, that's essentially 90% constructed, completed overall.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
guess the question
Yes.
is that last percent, that has to do with the paving and what might happen there? Is that what you're anticipating? About 10% might go into that? Or is that
No,
something
when I
different?
said 90%, the 90%
Okay.
is the earthwork strictly. So there's 10% of the earthwork contract remaining.
Okay, and that
So
doesn't have anything to do with what might go on with the paving portion?
no, nothing. No.
Okay.
No.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions for Chris? Otherwise, that the overall project, it's still about $900 million, for all phases, Chris.
Yes. Yep. I mean, it's continually, we have kind of a whole separate management action kind of financial thing going on with central office with CSVT. As you know, they're funding it, but there's constantly construction work orders that we're working with central office on keeping the funds adjusted on this project. So it won't be till 2028 till we know exactly what the final cost is. But yeah, that's roughly still the same estimate.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions for Chris before we go to the Route 54 project? Okay, thank you. We have those bullet points on the slide just to assist people as well, but I know Greg's on and he'll be interested, I'm sure, to hear about this, Chris.
Steve, Greg, I'll keep this one pretty brief. We have cleared the right-of-way and utilities. Those are resolved, and the PSNE has been through several reviews. The final one is underway, and our contract management unit is putting the bid package together right now. We anticipate advertising the project by the 17th at the latest. And we are still holding the let date of December 12th of this year. We have, when I spoke about this the last meeting, we were anticipating the project would be complete in 2030. We've since revised it down to 2029. Like I mentioned with CSVT, there is a good deal of information on this project's webpage on our district website, which is too hard to explain or read out, but I did send Steve the hyperlink for it, and it'll be in the notes that go out after the meeting. You can see plans and more detail on what the final project is going to look like. So again, we have revised it down to 2029. There's no saying that the successful bidder may not have the ability to complete it sooner. So hopefully, they can advance it quicker than that. But right now, that's where we're at.
Chris, any questions on the 54 safety project?
No questions really, but Chris, I appreciate the updates. I did have one observation. The last meeting that we had a significant increase administratively in the cost figures. And again, today I see almost another $1 million. Is this something that we can look forward to with additional cost increase going forward, or are we pretty much done now?
No, that should be done. I don't want to get into the specifics of we have had some issues during design with working with our consultant on this project, and it's we've had a lot of back and forth, a lot of revisions, and that last cost estimate was the final PS&E review of just additional stuff that, for lack of a better word, I'll say was missed, and that was needed to submit the 4232. So no, there won't be. The only reason we would have another increase or decrease at this point will be based on a low bid that we concur with.
That's kind of what I was figuring, that we're to the point now where bids going out. That's pretty much where it's going to rest.
Yeah, we have the 4232 actually approved. So.
Okay. Well, thanks again for the updates. I do appreciate it.
Yep.
Great, thank you, Chris. And as Chris mentioned, the link is there, and we can share that in the ticker. If you want to see what the intersection will look like with its new displaced left turn, or other improvements here for those of you not familiar with that corridor and what's being proposed, feel free to check those out. It's a hefty project, and so we like to make sure we're getting these regular updates out on the two prominent ones, CSVT and the Route 54 safety project. If there's others you really want to hear something more detailed about in the future, feel free to let us know. And we can work to coordinate that with the district staff. If there's nothing further there, we'll move along the agenda to item F, and that's our normal UPWP, or our Unifying Work Program. All kind of the main staff activity reporting, major plan documents and processes on behalf of the MPO. That starts on page 27. I'll just highlight a couple here since we have some of them on as agenda topics later on. So following along there, the 2025 to 2028 TIP for Transportation Improvement Program, that was approved by the MPO in June. It kind of navigates through the process, and the State Transportation Commission approved it in August. And then just last week, the Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration had approved the state's overall 12-year program and all of our individual TIPs or 4-year project listings as well. And they had provided a planning finding, things that are really working well and commended in the process, and then a few recommendations, I believe 5 as well, that we should consider for the future. So the TIP is now taking effect since we're into October. Again, it follows the federal fiscal year of October 1st to September 30th. So we're into the 2025 TIP now, and you'll see a lot of adjustments for the next meeting in November for all the kind of cash flow and balancing, since there was a lockout period during the summer months. And so expect a lot of adjustments here for the next meeting in November. On the complete streets side of things, just reference it. Kristen was able to serve up the complete streets page now on our MPO page, so that'll house the policy that was adopted this year by the MPO, the checklist forms, and then any projects that are new and going through that process and being screened, we'll get those actual checklist forms available on the website for the public and all the members to access as well. So hopefully that's a good resource. We have some other things that are best practices on a national and state level included there also on our complete streets page. On to page 29. I mentioned about the carbon reduction strategy there. There's several updates going on. Some of these can be related to the electric vehicle charging stations and others that are eligible. But there's some examples if you want to check those out on the state's website, and the carbon reduction strategy that is available. And if folks are looking at other grant programs, I think that's a good resource to go if you're trying to help them bring down, minimize, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and a variety of resources there, and more to come in the future from PennDOT. Page 30, the multimodal fund applications. We have for the prior award, and was mentioned to Sean before the meeting got started, the Secretary of PennDOT, commended the county on doing that group bridge project for the smaller local bridges and getting multimodal funding for the last round. Is a good example and a best practice. The next PennDOT application cycle is underway, and applications are due by November 5th. So if folks at the municipal, county level or otherwise are interested in pursuing the multimodal transportation fund, there's a little bit of time left to prepare those applications for the 70-30, state funding 70%, 30% local match. And as those get approved and underway, those get reflected on the tip, as you saw earlier with the one in Columbia County for that bridge or 10-mile run. On to page 31, we list out some of the project support for various things that we're hearing directly from local governments about, or other project sponsors or advocates. The site there. I mentioned on the Safe Streets and Roads for All, Mifflin County going in and pursuing that. The city of Williamsport also has had some linkages and connections with our MPO. And also East Buffalo Township. So several municipalities went in for the latest federal discretionary grant of Safe Streets and Roads for All. So hopefully we'll hear sometime early next year about maybe awards for those projects. We do have active in Lewisburg Borough Safe Streets and Roads for All grant, and also the city of Shamokin in the planning process. So things come out of those on the implementation or construction side of things, potentially candidates for the MPO to look at and consider for the tip or otherwise. On page 32, I wanted to highlight that last meeting we had approved the US Route 15 corridor improvement study for Union and Lycoming counties that the Baker team was developing for us and the Williamsport MPO. After our meeting on August 9th, the Williamsport MPO had approved that report as well, and the findings therein on September 9th. So that was adopted, approved by both of our MPOs as the joint plan and study. And hopefully we'll be moving into the implementation mode then over the next year to try and address some of those improvements that were designed in there. The middle of that page 32, we mentioned the Central Region Operations Plan. There were meetings in August, and this is kind of more your transportation system management and operations, like the ITS devices. You think the message board, if you're traveling around, other things to address congestion and operations and safety on interstates, principal arterials, and otherwise. That regional operations plan is being updated for districts 2, 3, and 9, and I think parts of 10. And so we'll report more on that as it comes together. But the project listings and matrix are being revised, and we'll make sure that that would eventually be provided to MPO members of the draft plan later this year. You can see what kind of operational projects are listed in there, and then we'll make sure that's on our website as well. So some of the early stakeholder sessions being held, more to come, and hopefully a final project listing for you maybe late this year, early next year. On the bottom of page 33, the new tools we were mentioned that were procured on behalf of the MPO, the Urban Sim scenario planning modeling tool and Social Pinpoint, our online community engagement tool. Those are advancing. The vendor from Urban Sim is working to prepare this cloud-based model for us, validating a lot of demographic, traffic information and data. So that's coming together. We're having regular coordination sessions with them, and we'll look forward to working closely with the county members and the full MPO and some of the outputs from that. That'll help us as we project and look outward 20, 30 years, what some of the land use and economic development, transportation scenarios are for the region. And then the social pinpoint page was deployed for our long range plan, kind of allow easier interaction, and a much more visually appealing site than what you can normally do through traditional website design. So hopefully you've had a chance to look at that, some of the resources that are out there, the embedded survey, perhaps, or the long range plan, or even a little brief tutorial video that we have about it. And then probably hold anything further for me until touching on the strategic plan project tracker. But at this time, since page 34 has our LTAP update, turn it over to Don to kind of hit those highlights, and then have embedded here a few slides for some things that Don's been working on or learning about.
Yeah, you can start the first one, I guess, Steve. Just as a reminder to everybody, what the LTAP program is, it's a local technical assistance program. That's a federal initiative that comes down through all the various states. And SEDA COG helps coordinate things like the on-site classes and technical assist requests from municipalities in our region. We also get over into Center County to do some of that as well. So a couple of years ago, I inherited the position. LTAP has an advisory committee that has 2 meetings a year, spring and fall. There's also a regional LTAP conference that will be coming up later this month over in Delaware for about 5 or 6 states that I'll be going to. So this past Wednesday, we had our fall meeting. And there's a couple of things I wanted to highlight from that meeting that I thought would be of interest to everybody. The first one is up on the screen here, where Matt Long from PennDOT gave a demonstration of a new local bridge inventory tool. This is the first time that I'd seen anything like that. I know how important local bridges are for maintaining and repairing. We heard that earlier in the meeting today. And PennDOT is working on something that, as I understand it, can be rolled out and accessible to municipalities to help manage the data and conditions and even photos for local bridges. So there's a few things that I'm not quite sure exactly how that's going to be accessible or the timing on it, but they're working on it. And a couple of things to point out. I know it's a little hard to see on the map, but there's triangles and dots that represent the bridges. What the intent is for local users is that you'll be able to see all of the state maintained bridges, the NBI bridges, but you won't be able to edit the data that go along with them. You know, that information can be seen through the PennDOT One Map program, but PennDOT is the one that maintains and updates that information, but you can see that at the local level. The dots represent local bridges, the ones that are under 20 feet. And one of the questions was, are culverts going to be included in this? And apparently they can be or will be. So where the locations are, if you go on to the next slide, Steve, again, you can't really see all of this, but there will be a data form essentially that can be updated regularly by local governments. And at the bottom, you know, just little small thumbnails, but you can add photos of the bridges that go along with that too. So I think overall, it'll be a good resource once it becomes more widely available. And I think they're still updating some things and adding some things. But for those of you that know Matt Long, if you have any questions about the status of that or what that can do for everybody, you know, he's the point person on that down in PennDOT. So the meetings that we have generally include some presentations from PennDOT about what's going on in various aspects of things. Another thing that we've been working on, and Bryce here is our expert on this, is something that is, I think the first initiative for something like this came from the NEVA Alliance MPO folks up northeast of here, where they have been tracking and developing a GIS-based website to look at the LTAP activity, the programs. So what we do as the MPO here is coordinate new class requests, signing up users, looking at where the requests are coming from, what types of classes might be of interest to different areas. And a few months ago, we decided to put Bryce to work on developing a website it's accessible right now to everybody. Yeah. And Bryce is going to demonstrate that a little bit for you. one of the main reasons for doing that is it gives us a chance to look at areas that are most active for having and hosting LTAP classes, but also areas that maybe where there hasn't been that much activity, so that we can try to reach out a little bit better to some of those areas and schedule classes and try to get them interested in it. So it's a fairly simple application, but very nice. We demonstrated this, Bryce showed this for the whole group this past Wednesday. And I guess the last comment I'll make about it is we're, along with NEPA Alliance folks, we're trying to get the state LTAP people interested in developing this kind of resource or expanding it statewide. I think there would be a lot of value in that for analysis of what's going on, where classes are being held, activity areas, where some gaps are. And they're very, I think, impressed and interested in what we're trying to do together. So I'll let you just run through it real quick if you can.
Yeah, so the link's in the chat for everybody if you want for reference, and I can send it so we can send it out via email afterwards. But like Don mentioned, this is our attempt to show how LTAP is being, utilized by our local governments. So here you can see up at the top, we have tabs for each of the major categories that Don mentioned. We have our in-person courses, our tech assists, our new road scholars, which is like the education program, any new online users, and then we have our SEDA COG workshops. So the main goal here is to see the map, and anything in green indicates that somebody from that municipality attended the course, asked for a tech assist, was a new user. And then any of the blue little dots here mark where the classes are located. So you can click on the township. Well, at least to give you an example of the township, you can click on the township or municipality and see over the years, 2021 to our last update, what is the end of August, how many people attended, any of the classes in the region or outside the region. Then if you click on one of the points, you can click on a class to learn more. So you can see, here's the date. It was in 2021. Mark and Ta was the instructor and taught about active transportation. And you can see all the, 11 people attended, the location and whatnot. So every one of these pages has the map. On the right-hand side, you can see some number indicators. So we can say that we've had 39 courses in the past couple of years, an average attendance of about 18 people, and a total attendance of about 686 people. In the bottom right, you can see a pie chart that indicates the amount of municipalities that have been served in our region. So we've had 76 municipalities attend at least one course. And then the bottom of each of these, we have at least a county marcator. So you can see the total amount of attendance from each of our counties, center being, the number one here, but you can go by year and see how those change. So that's just an example of the in-person courses. I'll just show one more for Tech Assist to give you another example. Looks at loads. So yeah, a little bit more, points on the map to click on. Click on one of these. You can see different Tech Assists. So this one was where we have in Howard Township and in Center County. But each of these, you can fully click on and learn more about the Tech Assist. And then one thing I've failed to mention so far is our left-hand panel here, which you can, click or make bigger. But it just gives them a brief background on the LTAP program, as well as directions on how to use the dashboard and some contact information for Don. But we're hoping to update this biannually every January, July here moving forward to get most update numbers for everybody. So yeah, please feel free to use the link that I shared, and if you have any questions or comments or ways to make it better, please let us know.
Okay, thank you. A couple other real quick comments. One of the things that we'll probably be adding to this, we'd like to see on a statewide basis, is if you're from a township over in Center County, for example, and there's a class being offered over in Columbia by one of the municipalities, you may not even know where that is. Or if you just see the name of a township. On the LTAP website right now, all you can see is kind of a text list. There's a class coming up that's being hosted by X Township. What NEPA Alliance has done is put their current and upcoming classes on a map so that you can look and actually see where that is. I think that would be really valuable for people to be able to look at. Well, I know I'm here, but where's the nearest, traffic signals, training class going to be coming up? So, LTAP people are really interested in that. One thing that's a little bit of a request for everybody is it's been interesting to watch since COVID, where during the COVID time period, the number of on-site classes really decreased, as you would imagine. And we saw a pretty good bump here in the last couple of years in classes being held on site, but that's kind of declining a little bit right now. And we're thinking maybe that's because people were catching up on their classes that they missed out on for a couple of years because of COVID. And now there's a little bit of a lull in things. So if you have the ability to market a little bit to some of your municipalities, that would be great. Between now and the end of November, there's classes still coming up on managing utility cuts, school transportation management it's going to be over in State College. I think that'll be very interesting. There will be 2 different classes, the same class, but 2 different locations on GIS, actually, introduction to that. One on traffic calming and one on winter maintenance. So that's my marketing push for this time. And the LTAP program is going really well. And we'll keep reporting on this as future meetings here take place. So unless anybody has any questions.
Could you stop? We'll get back to the PowerPoint here for a few other updates and then refer to a few slides as well. Back in the attendance slide, navigate through, but bit of a delay. There we go then. Okay, in the packet, page 35, it's a new item we wanted to reference. It's the strategic plan tracker that we had adopted this year. Making progress on many fronts there. They reported on the notes column that lays out the objectives, the initiatives, the leads toward the various initiatives, the priority status, and then notes. So I'll just touch on a couple here real briefly, and where we particularly like to see member advice or input on. So again, page 35 of your packet is where we have this strategic plan tracker. On the resiliency side of things, just mentioned that PennDOT is developing a new resilience improvement plan. And as we get more information, we'll share that and make that linkage to our long-range plan. But there's a lot of discretionary funding and formula funding to address flooding and other major events that we can hopefully become more resilient to and minimize the impacts of. So more to come on that. Mentioned several things here throughout since we've joined AMPO, the National Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations. We're hitting a lot of these kind of training and national forum discussion group items that are listed on the tracker. We belong to several of those during hitting the webinars as members. Maybe identify things you'd like to learn. Feel free to let us know. We can share the materials and presentations with you on those different groups, whether they be resiliency related, active transportation, data, emerging technologies like autonomous vehicles or electric vehicles, things of that nature. So there's several pages here, and it's a little hard in your hard copy, but the electronic, hopefully you can view easier with the status updates. But I wanted to mention on the communication engagement, we had a public engagement playbook developed for the long range plan, and we'll look to kind of follow that model for future plan updates, make that more definitive and all the different campaigns and opportunities we have to share information with the public. On page 36, middle of the way, there's that initiative to attend other MPO meetings, to observe planning practices, that they're developing and working on. We regularly hit the Williamsport, our neighbor in Lycoming County, MPO meetings as they're held throughout the year. But we might try and join the Center County ones. Don mentioned the NEPA Alliance, our friends to the northeastern side of things, and Schuylkill County is our abutting county with them. The Lackawanna Luzerne MPO and the Harrisburg MPO. And as we share that with MPO members. If you're open to that and want to, kind of learn experience, what other MPO meetings are like or the things they're discussing, I think that would be a good opportunity. And we could forward off meeting links. Pretty much all of them have hybrid meetings anymore, or some of them are entirely virtual. So that would be a follow-up. We can share that with you if you have time, or you want to just, kind of eavesdrop or see what's going on with our neighbors or other MPOs, to consider that in the future. Also on that page, we have the transportation workshop training item, and that's in italics there in the notes. Look for board members to kind of notify us if there's specific training topics you'd like to either have us bring to an MPO meeting as a guest presentation, or orchestrate some type of training event for local governments to do that, whether it be funding on some of the modal considerations, local bridges, whatever the case may be. If there's something you see value in having as a guest presentation, or just, design a specific training event, we're happy to work with you on that type of thing, and that would help with that objective. Also mentioned page 37, there's italicized text there for the funding workshop per year. A few years back, Lincoln and Sean paired up and did a Union Snyder local funding workshop. We're looking into those with the Middle Susquehanna Active Transportation Committee, for bike beds and trail projects. And if there's other ideas you have, like to have us as staff or as the MPO to help, piggyback on something or develop some kind of funding workshop, feel free to let us know. We can coordinate with other offices here at SEDA COG, like our community revitalization office or others, to try and get those prepared and hopefully see more successful funding applications from within the region. And I think another one I had italicized is page 38, just a note at the bottom there, that initiative for multimodal trips or movements to be experienced. Number of our counties are coming on with the rapid transit, micro transit stop hopper service and supporting that. Northumberland County has already approved their local match, and different kinds of events and campaigns and raising awareness. And so if there's rides related to that, if there's things on the rail side, or aviation events or field views or experiences, feel free to let us know if there's you'd like to see arranged for some type of trip or a capstone project. Maybe we could put together for members that want to go see those and experience them. Share those at any time with us with what your ideas are. Potentially, we talked about a road MPO meeting at some point, maybe to rather than have your office, go to an example project site or a tour for members to be at the end of an MPO meeting. So different concepts or ideas. You can look forward to seeing what you have in mind for that. And so next is the EV charging stations tracker, and Don has a couple slides related to this in the PowerPoint as well. So we'll transition to that. That's okay.
Okay, just as a reminder, Brian Funkhauser and his group from Michael Baker assisted us in putting together the EV study that was adopted this past summer, while Steve's bringing up a couple of slides. Out of that study, we looked at 10 different potential project areas, and out of the 10, we selected 5 different ones as priority ones. And I'll wait till Steve brings the slide up, because that will show that a little bit easier if you're able to do that.
Yep.
Yeah. So what we've been looking at are sites up in the Lock Haven area, in the Lewisburg area, and over in Columbia County as the primary priority sites. A couple of them in Union County, a couple of them in actually 3 of them in Union County, 1 in Lock Haven and 1 over in Columbia County. The main development in that is that this past week here, we've talked with Mark Schultz up at District 2 about the carbon reduction funds and the ability to use that for EV projects. That is currently ongoing through the channels in District 2, working with the North Central RPO on their plan and their potential projects. And it looks like that's going to be able to go forward, that those funds will be eligible and usable for implementation of charging stations. There's an 80-20 split on there. There's 20% local match that's required for that. So what we started this past week is having a call with Mark and with Borough of Lock Haven, or is it city? I can never keep that. City. With Lock Haven on the sites that were identified up there. We want to get the ball rolling on getting positioned to be able to put applications in for carbon reduction funding for those sites. And what we'd also like to set up are similar calls with Mr. King at District 3, Commissioner Karchner and David, if you're available to talk about that in a meeting with us and with Chris up at District 3. We'd like to set that up real soon to especially look at the visitor center site right off Interstate 80 there. And we'll be doing the same thing with Lewisburg Borough and with Evan Hospital about the sites that are in Union County. So that's good to find out that it looks like there's a path forward to be able to use that kind of funding. And so the discussion will talk about timing and nuts and bolts, options for being able to come up with local match funding to promote those projects. And we're pretty excited about seeing that go forward. You can go on to the next slide, Steve, too. There's other things that are going on at the state level through the NEVI program. I think it's the next slide. Yeah, that I wanted to touch on briefly because this is also funding that is coming out probably this coming year, 2025. But without getting too much in the weeds here, PennDOT through this NEVI program gets federal funding that can be allocated throughout the state. And until this point, they have largely concentrated on corridors, the main corridors that you can see up on the map here. So all the little stars and dots and other things and the lines that are represented on the map that you can see are the main corridors for initially putting charging stations in, especially for through traffic people. What they're getting to now, though, in the next phase of things, if you go into the next slide, is the community charging program. This will be starting to come out in 2025. They're finalizing guidance for this right now. It will have 4 aspects to it. Still looking at further corridor connections, as they're calling it here. But the community charging program is probably the main thing for us to be concerned with, because that can help support funding for projects that are not on those designated corridors to serve more of the local communities. There are also some other things for critical investments and then even the EV workforce support for maintaining EVs. So this is still being finalized a little bit, but the main thing to mention here is that this is moving fairly quickly. And probably, at least what they're saying right now, is in the first quarter of 2025, they may come out with some funding guidance and starting to ask for proposals for this. So we expect to be involved in that quite a lot as well. Even though we only have the 5 priority locations that were identified, I think it's our intention to look at all of those as we go forward, and even some other ones that might be something that pops up. So funding is continuing to come down through the channels, and we're seeing things break loose pretty well. So again, we'd like to talk to you folks in Columbia real soon about this, and we'll be setting up some calls to discuss that. Would you like to add anything, Steve, that I missed?
Sure, just went very positively with City of Lock Haven. We know it's budgeting season as we're into the fall months here now, obviously, but they thought that 20% match was feasible. As Don showed, it was pretty minor cost for that, and we appreciate Mark Schultz at the North Central RPO Rural Planning Organization. They had 5 sites that they're advancing and got through the PennDOT Central Office team to use the carbon reduction program funds available to us with the charging station. So they're learning a lot of things and hopefully leveraging some things like open-end agreements with consultants to accelerate the timetable. And then, we would need an endorsement, a confirmation by the local project property owner or sponsor for the 20%. But we're hopeful that these come together and we can quickly get to implementing that EV charging station study. And the community charging, Don said, for the statewide National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, that they build out essentially with the selected projects, the interstates and major expressways, for these community charging options. And we did previously promote the survey. If you have ideas or thoughts on that, and we'll kind of have bins of targeted, project locations or types of project areas that we can weigh on as an MPO to influence that. So more options coming and more funding, not just on the interstate. So exciting time. We did have those charging stations project tracker on page 39. As Don said, the note there is we're consulting with the site host and look forward to those conversations and advancing those, whether it's through the carbon reduction program fund that we as an MPO have available or the discretionary pot for funding. The other stuff in this section is our normal reporting on the highway occupancy permits and traffic impact studies. Feel free to let us know today or afterward if something stands out and you'd like to learn more about. And then it's our transportation alternative set aside status tracking as well. So the Bald Eagle Valley Trail was the main one there, I think, with updates, phase 5. And that notice proceed was issued. Steve left the room, but Mark, anything you'd like to share on that one that should be getting into construction for the Bald Eagle Valley Trail phase 5?
We did have a conversation recently because of low bid cost savings on that project. Also, Steve was working with the through us to the central office TASA group in the approver of the funds to utilize some of those funds for the connectivity to the bridge, Katie's Crossing Bridge over the Susquehanna River. So we're working towards that. It looks like they're going to be able to extend the paving limits and actually make a improvement to material that has been washed away in previous rain events. So it sounds like it's moving forward well, and look forward to that opening and completion of that next phase.
Great, thank you, Mark, for the update. We always love to hear about bid savings, and glad that a little bit more can be done there for that phase 5 project. Thank you. Okay, if there's nothing further, I advance the slide. We're on to agenda item G. I'll be brief with this. It's our work program for the next 2-year period, 2005 to 2027. So start July 1st of next year. Not a whole lot has changed since the August 9th meeting. We did apply the budget numbers since we had the allocated amounts from PennDOT central office. So we built in broken down budgets by the main path bins there, path 1, 2, 3, our local technical assistance program funding, and then the complete street funding that we get for those planning purposes as well. So that was the main change revision. We also had a coordination call with PennDOT, Federal Highway Administration after our August 9th meeting, reflected a couple minor things there. Page 6 includes that planning finding I referenced earlier for the 2025 TIP. We put those recommendations right in there in case you're curious and want to see what those are. Things that we can focus on improving for future transportation program development. That's page 52 overall of the packet. If there's additional planning activities on page 53 of the packet, you'd like us to cite local plans, studies, initiatives you'd like the MPO staff to engage on or otherwise support, feel free to let us know, but we have a bulleted list there of some of those more localized studies that we're aware of and should be touching and is playing a part on. And the rest of this, like I said, largely is carryover. Main thing will be there's a formal review needs to be conducted before it's adopted by the NPO. So immediately here after this meeting, we'll send it off to PennDOT Central Office, Federal Highway Administration, and Federal Transit Administration for a formal review before we present it in November for adoption. And this will return us to a 2-year cycle, like we've been saying. We got this year is a 1 year just to get off the TIP development cycle to avoid the major efforts and reviews that are involved with that to combine with the work program. But it'll be that 2-year stable funding and objectives and tasks. We try to capture as much comprehensively here and call out those main deliverables that you see cited throughout. But the main thing will be we'll share with the federal state partners, see if there's any comments or suggestions they have, and then bring it back in November for adoption vote by the NPO. Any questions on the draft work program? Okay, hearing none, we're up to the draft coordinated transit plan, and Chris, can you give us an update on that?
So, the MPO previously contracted with Gann Fleming and Rockland Planning to develop a coordinated transit plan. And this is, has traditionally been a joint venture with Watts MPO, which is like Fleming County's MPO. Just because of the overlap of some services that are covered by this area. The draft coordinated plan, the link to the plan itself, is on the digital copy of the meeting agenda. But it is on our website, under the MPO COG website. It is with the meeting agenda, as well as a link to the story map that was developed for it. And we anticipate having the final draft this next week or so. And then thereafter, we'll begin a public comment period. That will have to begin by October 16th. So that's the last date that public participation section would begin, and we would anticipate adoption at the November MPO meeting. In conjunction with the public comment period, we'll be hosting a public participation panel that will be soon scheduled for the formal review of that plan.
Thank you. And yeah, hopefully the story map, if you want to go to that for the quickest kind of review or share any comments with us about it, that's a new thing we haven't had in the past for the coordinated transit plan. It's just been a PDF document. So we're glad to have that brought available and a little bit more interactive. You can see various charts and, you know, a lot of photos throughout as you scroll down that story map. So thanks, Chris.
Yeah, and one interesting component of the plan, which I don't believe was incorporated in previous ones, was interviews with actual users. It gives kind of an overview of why they use transit, what their situation is, and how they benefit from it, how their lives and their families benefit from it. That's a really interesting section in the latter part of the plan. Take a look at it. Definitely have it. That's right.
Any questions for Kristen on the coordinated transit plan or receiving a long range transportation plan update from Kristen and Brian? Okay, that slide brought up then if you'd like to.
Brian, I don't know.
Oh, sorry, we have a question quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Jeff. Something we heard about during both the House and Senate transportation funding meetings is bus line or route redesign. Is there anything you can comment on at this point for that?
Not that I have heard in this particular area. There is the bus, River Valley Transit that runs a fixed route in the Williamsport area, as well as LAT's lower anthracite between Shamokin and Mount Carmel. I believe they may be looking to expand, but right now that's where that's at. But I have not heard any information about the actual route redesign in our particular area.
Were you talking about intercity transportation, Jeff, or something else?
Probably more mass transit, but I think they're looking, and I think Rabbit actually mentioned it briefly, but I know when Pittsburgh Regional Transit and SEPTA both testified, they talked a little bit about it too, but I think they're looking at all the legislature's looking at all the transit providers. Like, are you, in terms of the routes, are you getting the same people? Because a lot of places it's dropped since COVID and more people working from home. Some areas have declining populations, so are looking at, like, if we're going to give you money, then we want to see that you're making your system more efficient for like the amount of riders that you're getting in different stops and things like that. So that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, there's always kind of tweaks to zones and fare structures. That's something that I know most operators are working on. If they wanted to comment, they could about that for some fare increases. You try to stave those off as long as possible. But yeah, if there's other tweaks or suggestions you have, Kristen mentioned those profiles on the operators, and then kind of the customer experience was nice to have those interviews this time. You could really see the necessity, the need for public transportation and how it connects them to society and work and everything else.
Yeah, and I think you have also where some areas maybe you needed a bus stop years ago, you don't need it. And then you have new areas now where you've had additional development. It would be good if they actually had that. So I think it's kind of some trade-offs in that. So I think people look at just, cut just either arbitrarily increasing routes or whatever it is and raising costs. But I think there are some different things to look at too when you're doing this. Thanks.
Thank you. Brian, I don't know if you want to move into this particular part.
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Brian Punkhauser with Michael Baker. We're assisting the MPO with the update of the Regional Long Range Transportation Plan. Just want to give a brief update on planning activity. Earlier in the meeting, Chris King and Mark Schultz kind of walked us through some updates to the tip. So for this agenda item, we're really pulling back on the joystick and going up to 30,000 feet. We're looking at the regional program from that level. So there's been a lot of work that's been taking place over the past couple of weeks on the plan update, and we just want to give you an overview of much of what's been accomplished and a look ahead too, things we're going to be doing here from now through the end of the year, and how you can help us in really raising awareness of opportunities for the public to be involved in this regional plan update. So just want to cover 2 or 3 primary things as part of the briefing this morning. The MPO has been conducting a public survey over the past 5.5 weeks. We'll have more information on that at a future meeting, but I just wanted to provide a few initial findings, things that are coming out of that public survey. We're also working with MPO staff in planning a number of stakeholder interviews. And so I'll provide more information on that. And then finally, another major task that we're working on includes conducting regional listening sessions. And this will be an opportunity for the MPO to engage the public more on a face-to-face basis, throughout the region. Those meetings have been set up, and I'll provide a little more information to you about how that's going to unfold here in coming weeks. Okay, I'll begin first with the survey, just looking at some preliminary survey results. Again, this has been open for the past 5.5 weeks. We were originally going to close it out at the end of September. Working with staff, we decided to keep it open for another week yet. So we're looking to close out the survey today. Overall, we've received over 350 surveys have been completed by the public on this. And there's a chart here that just shows the distribution of men and women who've been filling out the survey by age group. And as is typical with these kinds of things, we tend to hear more from older generations than the younger set. So as we look at the survey results, it may be more greater representation from seniors as compared to younger generation or younger age groups. The survey asked the public for, what their priorities would be for the region's transportation program. Really good to see that safety is the #1 priority, which is in alignment with the MPO's priorities. It's in alignment with PennDOT's priorities, with safety being our #1 concern. It's our #1 priority. So that's reflected at the public level as well. They had registered that as their #1 priority. The survey asked people to identify what their top 3 priorities are for transportation. So that's how it's sorted on this slide here. So again, the top priorities that the public indicated to us were areas related to safety, active transportation, bicycle, pedestrian forms of transportation, as well as public transportation was also among the top 3 concerns that were identified by the public. So drilling down from this, looking at the priorities and some potential strategies that could ultimately flow out of the long-range plan are, some of the statements that you see here. The plan is going to be following what are known as the federal planning factors. These are high-level statements that the plan is going to be organized around, things like safety, mobility, how well does transportation support our economic competitiveness, things like travel and tourism. Those are all major areas that the plan is going to be focused on. The public has already provided an initial look at some of the possibilities that we should be looking into as potential strategies for the long-range plan. This is going to be good background for us, kind of a good jumping off point for us as we move deeper into conducting these regional listening sessions, as we do stakeholder interviews. I think the public has given us a good idea of some of the areas that they're concerned about. But through the upcoming stakeholder interviews, it's going to give us an opportunity to really drill down, as we talk to county planning directors, as we talk to the modal operators and others throughout the region, those who are on the front lines of transportation. It's going to give us an opportunity to really drill down into getting into more of the specifics. What are the specific things that the MPO needs to be working on over the next 4 or 5 years. So this is good baseline information for us, good groundwork as we move into other aspects of the plan development. A couple slides here on some of the more of the demographic information around the plan results. Again, the chart on the left just shows the type of responses or the types of issues that people are concerned about with regard to highway and bridge improvements. Again, active transportation, public transportation also scored highly as public concern. And again, that may be due in part to the greater number of seniors, who are responding to the survey. And then geographically, the chart on the right just shows the geographic distribution of the people who participated from across the region. Probably Union County, maybe a little more overrepresented here than most, but overall good geographic representation, people responding from all across the region. And the next slide just shows more of the data results spatially. Each one of the dots on this map represents a point of information or an area of concern that someone from the public had registered on the survey. The actual survey included an interactive map where the public could go in and drill down to an intersection level of detail. If there was an issue with maybe there's a missing, maybe a bus stop is missing here, or maybe there's a sign missing here, or there's a need for improved roadway geometry or a truck climbing lane, or whatever the need might be. The survey provided an option for the public to weigh in with regard to what they saw as what are our transportation needs across the region. So those are identified here on the map. And again, pretty good distribution of comments have been received region-wide. And the MPO can also make this information available to those of you who are county planning directors. I think there's a lot of good data here that will be available for you to use or at a county level for work that you're doing on county comp plans or other kind of planning work that you're doing maybe at a county or at a municipal level even. So a lot of good information here to draw from. This is also going to be important for us as we move into the new year. A lot of our work this year has been focused on data collection, collecting information from PennDOT, doing these interviews, doing the listening sessions. All of that is part of developing a good baseline for the new year. Because as we move into 2025, we're going to be focusing more time on things like this: the projects, project identification, project prioritization. What are our project priorities to be included in the long range plan? So again, this is a tremendous amount of information that we're going to have to work with as we move deeper into the planning process. From here, I'll just say a few words about the stakeholder interviews. I think we have a number of entities that we're going to be reaching out to here in coming weeks. And these would include, I mentioned, the county planning directors. You'll see those listed there. Other representatives, certainly going to reach out to both of the PennDOT districts, the modal operators, rail freight, aviation, public transportation. We want to talk to all of those who are involved with the provision of transportation services throughout the region. And then also the neighboring MPOs. I know there are a number of neighboring MPOs on the call here this morning. But we think it's important for the SEDA COG MPO to look beyond the borders and talk to your parts outside of the region, just to talk more about what are things that are happening outside of the region that are having an impact within the SEDA COG MPO region and vice versa. We have found these interviews to be very helpful in identifying areas where there can be, areas of mutual concern, areas where, frankly, the MPOs can collaborate on different types of planning activity, whether it's freight movement or things like functional classification reviews, There are all sorts of things that come out of those interviews that are highlighted. We can bring back to the MPO staff as things that, potential areas for collaboration, areas where the MPO can work together on with your neighboring MPO regions. So these stakeholder interviews are crucial. They're very important. So many of you here in the room are going to be part of this. We're going to be reaching out to you in coming weeks to get these interviews set up. We'll be providing a set of questions that will go out to each interview participant ahead of time. So they'll have some time to get acclimated with the questions, some of the things we're going to be interested in talking about. And we'll include a fact sheet as well, something that would give the interviewee some more information about the project before the time of the scheduled interview. Some of them may be focus groups as well. There are some with there may be some opportunities where we can do some collectively, do maybe 3 or 4 at a time to get those cranked out. So in addition to the interviews, I mentioned earlier the regional listening sessions. There are 4 of them that have been scheduled across the region. So you don't necessarily have to be a resident of that particular county, if you will, to attend that particular listening session. So we have them scheduled in Lock Haven, Lewistown, Ely'sburg, and Lewisburg. So again, if you're someone who lives in Juniata County, you're free to attend any one of these, certainly Lewistown or any others. We're going to be covering the same material at each one of the listening session events. Again, this is something that the MPO is doing to, there's different ways that we engage the public. We largely do it in many ways online or through digital means. This is an opportunity for more face-to-face interaction with the public. If someone wants to come and talk to an MPO staff person or a PennDOT staff person about transportation, what's not working well, do they have a concern, whatever that issue might be. The MPO is making this opportunity available for people to turn out and have that traditional face-to-face engagement with the staff and talk about transportation or things that they would like to see the plan address. So we would appreciate your help in promoting this. We've been working with the staff on things like a press release, artwork for social media that we can make available to you at a county level or for your agency to really help promote these events, really help us raise awareness of the opportunity for the public to be involved in this way. Right. Final slide. Again, we're going to just be continuing our work on data collection, developing our baseline with regard to the extent, the condition, the performance of the regional transportation system. But again, prime billing for us from now through the end of the year is going to be conducting these stakeholder interviews, the regional listening sessions, and really synthesizing the public survey results as well. I just kind of gave you a high-level overview of the survey results, but with the survey period ending today, we'll have work to do with really summarizing everything that the public had to say through that survey. So bottom line, we'll have much more detail to share with you at future MPO meetings, but we'll be providing briefings to you as the planning process continues. So I'd be happy to take any questions or comments. Part of this agenda item.
I have a question for you, Brian. This is Jim Latier from Mifflin County. Where in Lewistown is this listening session going to occur?
It is going to be at the Career Link.
Thank you.
Yeah, and as Brian mentioned, we will be getting details out to everyone. This is their upcoming, it's October now, so they're coming up relatively quickly. But we're working with their team to get the social media stuff out. So probably in the next week, you'll be seeing a massive emails about this information and asking you to share. I really want to thank everybody in the room or online who shared the survey information. I know I reached out to a number of you as we were seeing the information come in from the Michael Baker team in terms of where there may be gaps in responses, reaching out to folks in those communities to say, hey, can you please share this in any capacity? So I want to thank everybody that did that, because I think 350 is a pretty good number for a transportation survey. And so I'm really happy with that outcome. The listening sessions also, as Brian mentioned, we tried to spread these throughout the region. in a logical way, without having ones that would, if you had one from Lewisburg and Selinsgrove and Sunbury, it may decrease the amount of people that come and, 2 people at 3 meetings as opposed to 6 people at 1 meeting. So try to geographically spread them out logically, and talking with the Baker team, it sounded like you had some success in some other LRTP updates with having the sessions actually during the day as opposed to later, in the evening when we would normally do that, and had much more municipal participation in those, municipal officials. So those are folks that we don't always see out at the public meetings. So hopefully that will, that time will work for them as well. So we'll be reaching out to municipalities, counties, obviously, but anything you can do to help us share that information will be critical to the success of those listening sessions. And again, if you're in northern Union County, it makes more sense for you to go to the Lock Haven one as opposed to the Lewisburg one. That's fine, same thing with lower Northumberland. It's probably easier to get to Lewisburg. We tried to find one that was central in the eastern part of our region to cover both, lower Northumberland all the way up to Columbia. So Lewisburg kind of seems to be in the center of that. So the Lewisburg one will be at the Ralpho Township Building. Lewisburg will be at the East Buffalo Township Building, and the Lock Haven one will be at the Commissioners Meeting Room at the county building. And then also upcoming, like Brian said, the stakeholder interviews, the district strategy days, which we've done in the past with my thoughts. So a lot going on in the next couple months, but certainly, does anyone else have any other questions? Yeah.
So we have our transportation for next Tuesday. Can I get the draft survey data just to sort of talk to the group about that you presented?
Probably if you get the draft.
Oh, no, it's draft. I just, we're hitting a lot of the areas that I saw in the map. Okay. If we get something to you, I'll shoot you an email.
Sure, great. Thank you.
Might not be filtered, but just be the raw, quick equity raw.
I might not be sure.
Yep.
It's the whole point of the trip. It's to make a little better. This one, this plan.
These listening sessions too, will typically have Google Earth up on the screen. As people come in, they can highlight, different areas of concern. We can zoom down in and draw pins on the map with detailed information with regard to their comments.
Yeah, typically the statewide transportation commission does similar Metro Request survey, and I think we get like 150 to 190 through those. So we exceeded that with the long range plan, and we have some evaluation comparison we can do and look at what those clustering are points and the private means that are identified. So it's building the case further.
It's not a bad number for something that's not too controversial. So 150.
So, thank you. That's just any other questions?
Thanks.
Here and Kristen, you're still on for
Sure.
kind of recapping the statewide planning partners meeting this last year for all the MPOs and rural planning organizations and other partners at a federal level as well.
Yeah, so the fall planning partners meeting was held last week. And it's always a great opportunity for MPO members or the MPO staff here to meet with other MPO staff from across the state, the PennDOT teams from across the state, and learn best practices, information that's coming out, future studies, and topical areas. Actually, beginning in 2023, each MPO is now designated in a 4-year cycle to assist PennDOT in planning these conferences. And so this year was SEDA COG here. So I was involved from the beginning, starting out with monthly meetings with the PennDOT team and other MPOs and federal highways. And then starting in August, it moved to weekly meetings. So we were engaged in identifying speakers, identifying the topics on here. So that was an interesting look in the behind the stage, behind the screen aspects of it. So it was really interesting to be involved in that. We won't need to be involved in that again, I guess, until 2028. So we're on the hook now for a couple of years. The conference agenda is included in your packet, and we also have access to the presentations that were provided at that meeting. So if there's anything you have particular interest in learning about, let us know. If there's anything you're like, hey, that sounds like that may be useful information to have, let us know. We can see if there was PowerPoint information that's out there. They had breakout sessions this year, so we each hit different ones. I facilitated the pre-tip risk screening, which was held on Thursday, with some of the folks from PennDOT and Gannett Fleming. And that will be an interesting addition to our next tip cycle. But it was a pretty good conference, I think, overall. And there were some mentions of some success stories from executives from the region. So it's exciting to hear some of the mentions. And so thank you. Unless there's any questions about any of the topics, or Steve or Bryce. I think Dawn, you were there for there's also an MPO RPO caucus where PennDOT folks are in one room and then the MPOs and RPOs are in another room. Sort of sharing issues people are having both locally and, the state or federal partners to problem solve as a group, but also hear about some initiatives that are working.
Thanks, Kristen, for shaping that and being involved in facilitating the workshop as well. Next, Bryce will give us an update on some active transportation committee business and goings on.
Quick update again, reiterating a lot of what we talked about last MPO meeting. But the 2023-2024 bicycle and pedestrian counts program finished up in Clinton County. I picked up those counters 3 weeks ago from the Lock Haven Riverwalk and the Bald Eagle Valley Trail. We have a full year's worth of data for 5 of the counters. Unfortunately, one of our counters on Bald Eagle Valley Trail near Youngsdale Road had a malfunction. Not sure what happened there, but we lost data from May to September. But luckily, we have 3 other counters on the Bald Eagle Valley Trail. So similar to last year that I shared our story map with that data back in October. We'll have that to you hopefully by our next MPO meeting. And then, as mentioned previously, our next cycle will take place in Columbia and Montgomery counties. So thanks, Bob, and Berwick, Bloomsburg, and Columbia County for their help with that. Those counters are going out on Monday, so hopefully we'll get that data to everybody in increments along the next year. Then I wanted to thank everybody who joined our first work group meetings this past Wednesday. Hoping these discussion times are useful and become more useful as we get to the swing of things. And then lastly, our next full committee meeting for MSATC will be November 20th from 2 to 4 p.m. So if you're not included in those emails, please let me know and we'll get you added.
Bryce, any questions or comments for Bryce? I'll look for that nice story map, our continual online interactive mapping for the bike ped counts. And I know it's been helpful to Steve and your team there at Clinton County and, analyzing the data that we've been giving you at interim level and then for grant pursuits and everything else. So we're glad to hit on Montour next, and then eventually we'll hopefully get in all the counties at Snyder and Juniata and Mifflin for particular facilities or trails that you want to see counted also. Next is the proposed meeting dates for next year. Those are in the packet, page 83. Typically we show these to you at the next to last meeting, and then the final meeting we'll look to approve them for the ensuing year. The only thing I had to call out was the May 16th. We always try to coordinate with the County Plane Directors Association of Pennsylvania under CCAP on their dates, and they were looking at either May 9th or 16th. So we don't know which of those Fridays that they're going to choose. I think here in October, Tina's done outreach. They'll set their timetable for 2025. And so that May 16th, we may need to push ahead to the 9th, potentially based on what they set as their scheduled meeting for 2025. But if there's things you definitely know right now, or you want to share in the next week or two, let us know. If there's conflicts or major events that would affect a lot of members, and we can try and provide that for November adoption. But the only one we had to call out right now is the May 16th date could potentially change. And then the staggered terms, we'll bring that at the next meeting as well. We have the MPO voting member seats staggered, so there'll be the folks that have expiring terms here in 2024. So we'll work to get your appointing bodies, and hopefully you're still interested and want to serve, and then we'll get those actions from the appointing bodies to have you good for another 4 years. Next is agenda item M, and that's our typical member forum. Looking at the time where we are, pretty much the ending time, I'm not going to really cover things there. That's for your reference. But one thing I was going to note was on the stop hopper we talked about earlier, there's an expansion to Berwick that's coming. I think next week that'll go live. So we're excited about that micro transit service, not just the Danville to Bloomsburg, but now extension to Berwick. And so that's a very positive step being taken, and we're glad to see that. And continue to facilitate and assist with those efforts. The other thing I just wanted to mention was guest presentations kind of we talked about earlier. Ones that we were noting, and feel free to let us know of additional comments, but for next year as topics could be things like the effective use of the $5 fee in Union and Mifflin counties. We've talked about that. Maybe that'd be a good sharing. They have some presentations, examples of how they're using their $5 registration fee to address local bridges. So we partner with John and Jim Latier down at Mifflin County about that to kind of get discussion or prompt some questions about their successful model there as one. Also, Bob, you mentioned last time, like Americans with Disability Act, design recommendations or guidance changing for trails and other facilities. So maybe we'll identify a point person to kind of present some of that. We know some of the regulatory things are taking effect from the United States Access Board. So maybe sometime, 2025, that would be a good training or guest presentation. The pre-tip risk screening that Kristen referenced, how we evaluate upfront and avoid major cost increases or schedule impacts with projects being lined up for the tip. So I think that'd be good. More on electric vehicles, we have that as a topic area. And if things come together with this new local funding program you mentioned earlier, the 80.5 million or so available for municipalities, maybe line up a speaker from PennDOT or otherwise to talk about that and how that'll be administered. And finally, I'll mention the MUTCD or the Manual Uniform Traffic Control Devices. That was being revised, and that affects local governments very directly with their signage and pavement markings and traffic signals, other traffic control devices. So we're tracking that as a topic area for a guest presentation as well. So anything on any of those fronts or anything for the good of the order that members want to bring out here today at this time?
I don't know if I just overlooked it or not, but I'd like to thank Kristen and the gentleman from PennDOT that came out and met with me out at the intersection of 522 and University Avenue. We went over the possibility of putting a roundabout in there. It was discussed in the Route 522 corridor study. The meeting went very well. Had a couple of people slamming on their brakes as we were standing there, a lot of horn blowing. So it's been a safety issue for a long time, and I just appreciate their coming out and looking at the intersection. And it seems like we might be able to get something accomplished there for safety. So I appreciate them coming out. Thanks.
Thank you. Tom did mention the next day that he was really glad that he was there and saw that situation.
Yeah, that happens a lot. A lot.
Yeah, excellent. We're glad to support that. Yeah, from the prior study, and then you've seen just the benefits of roundabouts throughout the state, really reducing severe injury and fatal crashes. So hopefully that'll all come together in the not too distant future and be a really effective countermeasure there.
Yeah.
Brandon, thanks.
On behalf of Columbia County and the Bloomsburg Fair, and I think I can speak for the town of Bloomsburg, I want to thank PennDOT for all their efforts in helping with the fair. They orchestrate their projects around the fair traffic. They shut their projects down, and it's something that most people don't see, but I know it's a lot of work on their behalf. So, and to the stop hopper too, that'll really improve here in the future. So thanks for doing that.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you for that major attraction, and certainly helps with economic development, everything related to the Bloomsburg Fair. So, sure, Jeff, if you're raising your hand, please feel free to bring up your topic here now.
Sure. And I put this in the chat too. The House Transportation Committee is holding a meeting on Monday, the 7th at 11 a.m. and two bills that might be of interest to this group. One is House Bill 1043, and it imposes a penalty for those that would block charging stations. So that's something else. I think it's a nominal, I want to say $15 fee. That's one of the bills. And the other bill that's being considered is House Bill 2218. They're trying to restart the scooter program, which was a pilot for 2 years in Pittsburgh, and it's going to be rolled out to second class A, which is Scranton, and then they're looking at third class cities in Pennsylvania, which the two in the SEDA COG region would be Shamokin and Sunbury. So that's something else you may want to look at. I think the bill that's in the committee, House Bill 2218, addresses some issues that our folks brought up and some other community stakeholders. So I'm not aware of any amendments to those bills this time, but I can do updates the next time we have a meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. Catching up on the chat here, I think most of those were reference links and other items for folks to check out. I don't see any questions there, but are there other questions, comments from either in the room or online for the public forum or the member forum? Okay, hearing none, we're just slightly over our designated closing time of 11:30. It's 11:35, so if there's interest in making a motion to adjourn, we can do so this time.
So moved.
Second. Properly moved by Sean and seconded by Lincoln. Thank you all in favor. Okay, we're saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we're good to go. And before seeing you on November 22nd, before Thanksgiving, we're not even Thanksgiving week, we got the week before.